Call of Duty has always been made to be an easy game for casuals to get into as well as a solid game for competitive, and usually you want a multiplayer game of this nature to be well balanced. And while certain Call of Duty games have pulled this feat off, there have been some outliers, to say the least. And kicking off our list today of 10 of the most unbalanced Call of Duty games is World at War. Now, this 2008 World at War II game was very well received by fans, and it's considered by many to be one of the best COD games of all time, and yours truly loves the game as well. But everyone who's played the game, well, they know why it's on this list today. The MP41 gun. One gun. Ridiculously overpowered, especially if you put that freaking drum mag on it, and you put stopping power on it. It was insane, and you had such a huge mag, you could just run around hip firing and getting easy multi-kills, and thank goodness this thing was toned down in Call of Duty World War II, but Treyarch didn't exactly get much better with weapon balance, but we'll get into that one a little later. There's a lot of things that were wrong with World at War, and that's kind of what made it the fun game it was, but definitely unbalanced. At number 9, Call of Duty 3. We don't usually mention the old school Call of Duties. Many people don't even remember this game, or they've never played it. Drop a like if you have never played Call of Duty 3, but those who did play it likely know why it's on this list. Unlike Modern Warfare COD games that have custom classes, COD 3 had 7 preset classes for the Allies and the Axis, making 14 total. But the main problem was the fact that the Allied guns were significantly better than the Axis guns. Each side had a rifle class, an SMG class, an assault rifle class, an LMG class, a sniper class, and a shotgun class, and then the infamous explosive class. But for whatever reason, the Allied side just had far superior versions of each weapon thanks to lower recoil, higher damage, and overall better handling. Heck, the Axis side didn't even have a semi-auto rifle, while the Allied side had the M1 Garand, which was arguably the best version of the M1 from any COD game. Maybe it was done on purpose, or maybe it was just an oversight, but if you were playing COD 3 multiplayer and you were put on the Axis team, you were instantly put at a disadvantage due to the weapon design. This month's giveaway is for a brand new PlayStation 4 console. All you have to do to enter is like the video, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, turn on those notifications, and tweet me why you want to win it with your Twitter handle included. At number 8, Modern Warfare 3. I love Modern Warfare 3, and it's remembered very fondly by the COD community. It honestly is probably the best game when it came to launch content we've ever gotten, but it wasn't exactly the most well-balanced game in the series. It had the most weapons of any Call of Duty title to date with around 50 guns, but you really wouldn't know that by playing the multiplayer, because let's be honest here, people, we're only using 6 or 7 of them. The ACR, MP7, PP90 MSR, the MP9 FMG, and the Striker. Give or take a gun or two, those 7 guns were some of the most frequent sights in any match of Modern Warfare 3 multiplayer, but game balance doesn't stop with the weapons, and you can't talk about MW3's balance without mentioning the support kill streak pack. This strike package allowed even the worst players in the lobby to get things like stealth bombers, EMPs, and escort airdrops, which was just plain wrong. Now, I loved MW3, but even I could admit the balance was all over the place. At number 7, COD 4. This was one of those games where nobody was too concerned about the weapon balance when it first came out because we were just having fun with this new kind of experience. But as time went on and the remastered version came out, all the cracks were put on full display. It was an extremely well-designed game in terms of map design and customization, but the balance, it gets kind of funky there. The most obvious example is the infamous M16 assault rifle, but then you also had things like the AK-74U, the RPD, the M21, and any of the dreaded Frag x3 and Sonic Boom combos. It's interesting because you didn't see too many complaints about weapon balance back in the day, but you saw a ton of them during the remaster, and I think the COD community has shifted a bit since then. Now, it's way more common for COD players to use and abuse the most powerful things in the game before they're patched back into the Stone Age, and there was kind of little unspoken agreements. For example, if you were using Frags x3 with Sonic Boom back in the day, the lobby would have roasted you for playing cheap. But now, it's an accepted strategy to use the most broken stuff in the game until it gets patched out. And since MW or Modern Warfare Remaster was never patched, well, you can still experience this stuff. Black Ops 3, BO3, was actually a pretty well-balanced game for a while, but as time went on, things went downhill. It was the first Call of Duty game to unlock entire guns behind RNG paywalls in the form of supply drops, and these weapons included some of the most powerful guns in the game, like the Shadow Claw, the FFAR, and more. Plus, go ahead and pile that on top of the fact that the Brecci shotgun is still one of the most hated and blatantly overpowered guns in COD history, and it was somehow never patched, and you got a recipe for disaster. Black Ops 3 was a great game, and it's one of my favorite COD games overall, but I think we can all agree that the balance it would have been much better if they never added the supply drop guns. I mean, the supply drop guns were intentionally made to be super powerful, so they would be more desirable. If BO3 didn't have any post-launch guns and the weapon sandbox just stayed as it was on day one, I don't think it would be on this list. But unfortunately, that's not the case. Cracking into the top 5 today. Call of Duty World War II. Now, it was anticipated. Man, was it anticipated. Boots on the ground, going back to old school, but it was a bit of a disappointment upon release, although it has gotten significantly better since then thanks to a few reworks on the multiplayer system and the team behind it. Now, Sledgehammer definitely improved over Advanced Warfare with World War II in many departments. The weapon balance was not one of those departments, okay? World War II's gun balance suffered from a ton of flaws that AW's did as well. World War II multiplayer was dominated by a handful of guns. When I say a handful, I mean a handful. Mainly the PPSH, the BAR, and the STG. Then, as the game progressed and people started to realize how blatantly overpowered the LMGs were, you bet there was a ton of people just camping around with the Lewis, which made playing on shipment almost unbearable for a lot of people. Now, World War II didn't go with the overpowered variant system of AW. The core gun balance, though, was way off, and it also wasn't helped by the frankly terrible spawns on most every map. But I will say this. World War II did get me excited for Sledgehammer's next game. At number 4, my favorite Call of Duty of all time. Black Ops, the original, Black Ops 1. I love it, but I can't say it was balanced. It's quite the opposite, honestly. Everybody knows that Black Ops 1 was dominated by a handful of weapons, but it doesn't stop there. A lot of people forget that upon release, the snipers were all nerfed into oblivion, making them nearly unviable in a game that fast. BO1 was dominated by the FAMAS, the AK-74U, and the AUG. And a while back I made a video where I said it felt like those 3 guns were balanced for an entirely different game, and that maybe something during development had got screwed up. After all, Black Ops 1 was the first COD game to not have stopping power and Juggernaut, so maybe those 3 guns were added after the decision was made to cut those perks, while the rest of the weapon sandbox was made before the perk cut, which would explain the radically different time to kill between those 3 guns and the rest of the guns. Whatever the reason is, Black Ops 1 had pretty bad gun balance, and that's why I put it at number 4 today. At number 3, Black Ops 4. You would think that being the 4th game in the series, BO4 would have made improvements with the balance, but guess what? You would be wrong. Maybe it's impossible to balance a Call of Duty game. I don't know. Black Ops 4's multiplayer is a mess in terms of game design and balance. First of all, you have the specialists, many of whom which virtually unavoidable insta-kill abilities and attacks that players just get by existing in the match. You don't really have to earn them at all. Then, you have the gun balance, which has gone up and down throughout the months, but it's still dominated by a handful of guns, mainly the Titan. And as a finishing touch, the spawn system. It's been a mess since day one, and while it's been improved upon since launch, it's nowhere near as good as it should be for such a high-profile AAA game. Everybody knows that Treyarch really only cared about keeping Blackout going for BO4, leaving the multiplayer to kind of just sit on its hands with blatant balancing issues. And hopefully, Treyarch's next game is better, but I'm honestly starting to doubt the studio as a whole given how little they seem to put into the game. I mean, come on. At number 2, Infinite Warfare. IW's gun balance was decent enough on launch day, but it still had that classic COD problem where a handful of guns dominated the multiplayer, namely the NV4 assault rifle, which everybody used. But things only got worse for IW as time went on and more variants were introduced. Leading up to the release, Infinity War made it sound like the variants would have certain advantages and disadvantages, meaning they would kind of even out and balance out. But in reality, almost all the variants only had advantages, and in many cases, the advantages were massive. One of the most infamous of the IW weapon variants was the MV4 that had infinite damage range. I mean, it made it a laser from anywhere on the map. Plus, certain gun variants had a nuke built into them, which was a cool idea, but in practice it meant it ended up restricting a player's potential and giving a lot more power to certain weapons. The problem here with Infinite Warfare's variant balance is that they were intentionally made to be way better than the base versions, and if 2 equally skilled players went up against each other, but one person was using the base version and another had the epic variant, well, second player is going to win. Now, I really hope Activision never brings this variant system back personally. If you're going to do variants, do it like World War II did, where the differences are just cosmetic. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to drop a like on the video. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel with post notifications on so you always get alerted when a new video goes up and you can get that elusive first comment. And finally, at number 1, Advanced Warfare. Finishing things off is the game that introduced us to supply drops, and while we were all pretty hyped about them at first, it didn't take long for them to destroy the balance of the game. Much like Infinite Warfare, Advanced Warfare had a ton of variants of different guns in the game, each with their own perks and ways of making them better. However, the main difference between the two games is that AW's variants were way more powerful, and while IW allowed you to unlock the ones you wanted directly, AW's were rewarded at total random, meaning you got one of the super good ones, you were immediately at a huge advantage over everybody else because not only was the gun intentionally overpowered, but the system was designed that only a fraction of the total player base would ever get their hands on it. Plus, even if you took the variants out of AW, the base gun balance wasn't very good at all. After all, the game was, everybody called it the Battle of Duty, right? I really enjoyed this game, I did. But if I'm being honest with myself, which I like to do, it earns the top spot as the most unbalanced Call of Duty game of all time. I need to know if you guys agree or disagree with my list, and if you disagree, what do you think should have been on here and where should it have been? I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you soon.